Eli the Fanatic.
Leo Tsurov stepped out from back of a white column to welcome Eli Peck. Eli jumped back, surprised. Then they shook hands, and Tsurov gestured him into the sagging old mansion. At the door, Eli turned, and down the slope of lawn, past the jungle of hedges, beyond the dark, untrampled horse path, he saw the streetlights blink on in Woodenton. The stores along Coach House Road tossed up a burst of yellow. It came to Eli as a secret signal from his townsmen. "Tell this Tsurov where we stand, Eli. This is a modern community, Eli. We have our families, we pay taxes." Eli, burdened by the message, gave Tsurov a dumb, weary stare. "You must work a full day," Tsurov said, steering the attorney and his briefcase into the chilly hall. Eli's heels made a racket on the cracked marble floor, and he spoke above it. "It's the commuting that's killing," he said, and entered the dim room Tsurov waved open for him. 3 hours a day. I came right from the train." He dwindled down into a harp-backed chair. He expected it would be deeper than it was, and consequently jarred himself on the sharp bones of his seat. It woke him, this shiver of the behind, to his business. Tsurov, a bald, shaggy-browed man who looked as if he'd once been very fat, sat back of an empty desk, halfway hidden as though he was settled on the floor. Everything around him was empty. There were no books in the bookshelves, no rugs on the floor, no draperies in the big casement windows. As Eli began to speak, Tsurov got up and swung a window back on one noisy hinge. "May, and it's like August," he said, and with his back to Eli, he revealed the black circle on the back of his head. The crown of his head was missing. He returned through the dimness. The lamps had no bulbs, and Eli realized all he'd seen was a skullcap. Tsurov struck a match and lit a candle, just as the half-dying shouts of children at play rolled in through the open window. It was as though Tsurov had opened it so Eli could hear them. "No," he said. "I received your letter." Eli paused, waiting for Tsurov to swish open a drawer and remove the letter from his file. Instead, the old man leaned forward onto his stomach, worked his hand into his pants pocket, and withdrew what appeared to be a week-old handkerchief. He uncrumpled it, he unfolded it, he ironed it on the desk with the side of his hand. "So," he said. Eli pointed to the grimy sheet which he'd gone over word by word with his partners Lewis and MacDonald. "I expected an answer," Eli said. "It's a week." "It was so important, Mr. Peck. I knew you would come." Some children ran under the open window, and their mysterious babble, not mysterious to Tsurov, who smiled, entered the room like a third person. Their noise caught up against Eli's flesh, and he was unable to restrain a shudder. He wished he had gone home, showered and eaten dinner before calling on Tsurov. He was not feeling as professional as usual. The place was too dim, it was too late. But down in Woodenton they would be waiting, his clients and neighbors. He spoke for the Jews of Woodenton, not just himself and his wife. "You understood?" Eli said. "It's not hard. It's a matter of zoning." And when Tsurov did not answer, but only drummed his fingers on his lips, Eli said, "We didn't make the laws." "You respect them." "They protect us, the community." "And the law is the law." "Exactly." Eli had the urge to rise and walk about the room. "And then, of course," Tsurov made a pair of scales in the air with his hands, "the law is not the law. When is the law that is the law not the law?" He jiggled the scales, and vice versa. "Simply," Eli said sharply, "you can't have a boarding school in a residential area." He would not allow Tsurov to cloud the issue with issues. "We thought it better to tell you before any action is undertaken." "But a house in a residential area?" "Yes, that's what residential means. The DP's English was perhaps not as good as it seemed at first. Zuref spoke slowly. Till then, Eli had mistaken it for craft or even wisdom. "Residence means home," he added. "So, this is my residence." "But the children?" "It is their residence." 17 children? 18, Zuref said. "But you teach them here." "The Talmud, that's illegal. That makes it school." Zuref hung the scales again, tipping slowly the balance. "Look, Mr. Zuref, in America we call such a place a boarding school." "Where they teach the Talmud?" "Where they teach, period. You are the headmaster, they are the students." Zuref placed his scales on the desk. "Mr. Peck," he said, "I don't believe it." But he did not seem to be referring to anything Eli had said. "Mr. Zuref, that is the law. I came to ask what you intend to do." "What I must do?" "I hope they are the same." "They are." Zuref brought his stomach into the desk. "We stay." He smiled. "We are tired. The headmaster is tired. The students are tired." Eli rose and lifted his briefcase. It felt so heavy-packed with the grievances, vengeances, and schemes of his clients. There were days when he carried it like a feather. In Zuref's office it weighed a ton. "Goodbye, Mr. Zuref." "Sholem," Zuref said. Eli opened the door to the office and walked carefully down the dark tomb of a corridor to the door. He stepped out on the porch and, leaning against a pillar, looked down across the lawn to the children at play. Their voices whooped and rose and dropped as they chased each other round the old house. The dusk made the children's game look like a tribal dance. Eli straightened up, started off the porch, and suddenly the dance was ended. A long, piercing scream trailed after. It was the first time in his life anyone had run at the sight of him. Keeping his eyes on the lights of Woodenton, he headed down the path. And then, seated on a bench beneath a tree, Eli saw him. At first it seemed only a deep hollow of blackness. Then the figure emerged. Eli recognized him from the description. There he was, wearing the hat, that hat which was the very cause of Eli's mission, the source of Woodenton's upset. The town's lights flashed their message once again. "Get the one with the hat." What a nerve! What a nerve! Eli started towards the man. Perhaps he was less stubborn than Zuref, more reasonable. After all, it was the law. But when he was close enough to call out, he didn't. He was stopped by the sight of the black coat that fell down below the man's knees, and the hands which held each other in his lap, by the round-topped, wide-brimmed Talmudic hat pushed onto the back of his head, and by the beard, which hid his neck and was so soft and thin it fluttered away and back again with each heavy breath he took. He was asleep. His side locks curled loose on his cheeks. His face was no older than Eli's. Eli hurried towards the lights. The note on the kitchen table unsettled him. Scribblings on bits of paper had made history this past week. This one, however, was unsigned. "Sweetie," it said, "I went to sleep. I had a sort of Oedipal experience with the baby today. Call Ted Heller." She had left him a cold, soggy dinner in the refrigerator. He hated cold, soggy dinners, but would take one gladly in place of Miriam's presence. He was ruffled, and she never helped that, not with her infernal analytic powers. He loved her when life was proceeding smoothly, and that was when she loved him. But sometimes Eli found being a lawyer surrounded him like quicksand. He couldn't get his breath. Too often he wished he were pleading for the other side, though if he were on the other side, then he'd wish he were on the side he was. The trouble was that sometimes the law didn't seem to be the answer. Law didn't seem to have anything to do with what was aggravating everybody. and that, of course, made him feel foolish and unnecessary. Though that was not the situation here. The townsmen had a case, but not exactly, and if Miriam were awake to see Eli's upset, she would set about explaining his distress to him, understanding him, forgiving him, so as to get things back to normal. For normal was where they loved one another. The difficulty with Miriam's efforts was they only upset him more. Not only did they explain little to him about himself or his predicament, but they convinced him of her weakness. Neither Eli nor Miriam, it turned out, was terribly strong. Twice before he'd faced this fact, and on both occasions had found solace in what his neighbors forgivingly referred to as a nervous breakdown. Eli ate his dinner with his briefcase beside him. Halfway through, he gave in to himself, removed Zurev's notes, and put them on the table beside Miriam's. From time to time he flipped through the notes which had been carried into town by the one in the black hat. The first note, the incendiary, to whom it may concern. Please give this gentleman the following: boys' shoes with rubber heels and soles. 5 pairs size 6C, 3 pairs size 5C, 3 pairs size 5B, 2 pairs size 4A, 3 pairs size 4C, 1 pair size 7B, 1 pair size 7C. Total, 18 pairs boys' shoes. This gentleman has a check already signed. Please fill in correct amount. L. Zurev, Director, Yeshiva of Woodinton, New York, 5848. Eli, a regular greenhorn, Ted Heller had said. He didn't say a word, just handed me the note and stood there, like in the Bronx, the old guys who used to come around selling Hebrew trinkets. A yeshiva, Artie had said. Eli, in Woodinton, a yeshiva? If I want to live in Brownsville, Eli, I live in Brownsville. Eli, Harry Shaw speaking now, the old Puddington place, old man Puddington will roll over in his grave. Eli, when I left the city, Eli, I didn't plan the city should come to me. Note number 2. Dear grocer, please give this gentleman 10 pounds of sugar, charge it to our account, Yeshiva of Woodinton, New York, which we will now open with you and expect a bill each month. The gentleman will be in to see you once or twice a week. L. Zurev, Director, 51048. P.S. Do you carry kosher meat? He walked right by my window, the greenie, Ted had said, and he nodded Eli. He's my friend now. Eli, Artie had said. He handed the damn thing to a clerk at Stop and Shop. And in that hat yet. Eli, Harry Shaw again, it's not funny. Someday, Eli, it's going to be 100 little kids with little yarmulkes chanting their Hebrew lessons on Coach House Road, and then it's not going to strike you funny. Eli, what goes on up there? My kids hear strange sounds. Eli, this is a modern community. Eli, we pay taxes. Eli, Eli, Eli. At first it was only another townsman crying in his ear, but when he turned, he saw Miriam standing in the doorway behind her belly. Eli, sweetheart, how was it? He said no. Did you see the other one? She said. Sleeping under a tree. Did you let him know how people feel? He was sleeping. Why didn't you wake him up? Eli, this isn't an everyday thing. He was tired. Don't shout, please, Miriam said. Don't shout, I'm pregnant, the baby's heavy. Eli found he was getting angry at nothing she'd said yet. It was what she was going to say. He's a very heavy baby, the doctor says, Miriam told him. Then sit down and make my dinner. Now he found himself angry about her not being present at the dinner, which he'd just been relieved that she wasn't present at. It was as though he had a raw nerve for a tale that he kept stepping on. At last, Miriam herself stepped on it. Eli, you're upset, I understand. You don't understand. She left the room. From the stairs she called, I do, sweetheart. It was a trap. He would grow angry knowing she would be understanding. She would in turn grow more understanding seeing his anger. He would in turn grow angrier. The phone rang. "Hello?" Eli said. "Eli, Ted. So?" "So, nothing." Who is Zurif? He's an American guy?" "No, a DP, German." "And the kids?" "DPs too. He teaches them." "What? What subjects?" Ted asked. "I don't know." "And the guy with the hat? You saw the guy with the hat?" "Yes, he was sleeping." "Eli, he sleeps with a hat?" "He sleeps with a hat." "Goddamn fanatics," Ted said. "This is the 20th century, Eli. Now it's the guy with the hat. Pretty soon all the little yeshiva boys will be spilling down into town. Well, next thing they'll be after our daughters. Ah, Michelle and Debbie wouldn't look at them." "Then," Eli mumbled, "you've got nothing to worry about, Teddy." And he hung up. In a moment the phone rang. "Eli, we got cut off. We've got nothing to worry about? You worked it out?" "I have to see him again tomorrow. We can work something out." "That's fine, Eli. I'll call Artie and Harry." Eli hung up. "I thought you said nothing worked out." It was Miriam. "I did." "Then why did you tell Ted something worked out?" "It did." "Eli, maybe you should get a little more therapy." "That's enough of that, Miriam. You can't function as a lawyer by being neurotic. That's no answer." "You're ingenious, Miriam." She turned, frowning, and took her heavy baby to bed. The phone rang. "Eli, Artie, Ted called. You worked it out? No trouble?" "Yes." "When are they going?" "Leave it to me, will you, Artie? I'm tired. I'm going to sleep." In bed, Eli kissed his wife's belly and laid his head upon it to think. He laid it lightly, for she was that day entering the 2nd week of her 9th month. Still, when she slept, it was a good place to rest, to rise and fall with her breathing and figure things out. If that guy would take off that crazy hat. I know it what eats them. If he'd take off that crazy hat, everything would be all right. "What?" Miriam said. "I'm talking to the baby." Miriam pushed herself up in bed. "Eli, please, baby, shouldn't you maybe stop in to see Dr. Ekman, just for a little conversation?" "I'm fine." "Oh, sweetie," she said, and put her head back on the pillow. "You know what your mother brought to this marriage? A sling chair and a goddamn new school enthusiasm for Sigmund Freud." Miriam feigned sleep. He could tell by the breathing. "I'm telling the kid the truth, aren't I, Miriam? A sling chair, 3 months to go on a New Yorker subscription, and an introduction to psychoanalysis. Isn't that right?" "Eli, must you be aggressive? That's all you worry about, is your insides. You stand in front of the mirror all day and look at yourself being pregnant." "Pregnant mothers have a relationship with a fetus that fathers can't understand." "Relationship, my ass. What is my liver doing now? What is my small intestine doing now? Is my island of Langerhans on the blink? Don't be jealous of a little fetus, Eli. I'm jealous of your island of Langerhans." "Eli, I can't argue with you when I know it's not me you're really angry with. Don't you see, sweetie, you're angry with yourself. You and Ekman." "Maybe he could help, Eli. Maybe he could help you. You are practically lovers as it is." "You're being hostile again," Miriam said. "What do you care? It's only me I'm being hostile towards." "Eli, we're going to have a beautiful baby, and I'm going to have a perfectly simple delivery, and you're going to make a fine father, and there's absolutely no reason to be obsessed with whatever is on your mind. All we have to worry about," she smiled at him, "is a name." Eli got out of bed and slid into his slippers. "We'll name the kid Ekman if it's a boy, and Ekman if it's a girl." "Ekman Peck sounds terrible." "He'll have to live with it," Eli said, and he went down to his study where the latch on his briefcase glinted in the moonlight that came through the window. He removed the Zurif notes and read through them all again. It unnerved him to think of all the flashy reasons his wife could come up with for his reading and rereading the notes. Eli, why are you so preoccupied with Tsurev? Eli, stop getting involved. Why do you think you're getting involved, Eli? Sooner or later, everybody's wife finds their weak spot. His goddamn luck, he had to be neurotic. Why couldn't he have been born with a short leg? He removed the cover from his typewriter, hating Miriam for the edge she had. All the time he wrote the letter, he could hear what she would be saying about his not being able to let the matter drop. Well, her trouble was that she wasn't able to face the matter. But he could hear her answer already. Clearly he was guilty of a reaction formation. Still, all the fancy phrases didn't fool Eli. All she wanted really was for Eli to send Tsurev and family on their way so that the community's temper would quiet and the calm circumstances of their domestic happiness return. All she wanted were order and love in her private world. Was she so wrong? Let the world bat its brains out. In Woodenton there should be peace. He wrote the letter anyway. Dear Mr. Tsurev, our meeting this evening seems to me inconclusive. I don't think there's any reason for us not to be able to come up with some sort of compromise that will satisfy the Jewish community of Woodenton and the yeshiva and yourself. It seems to me that what most disturbs my neighbors are the visits to town by the gentleman in the black hat, suit, etc. Woodenton is a progressive suburban community whose members, both Jewish and Gentile, are anxious that their families live in comfort and beauty and serenity. This is, after all, the 20th century, and we do not think it too much to ask that the members of our community dress in a manner appropriate to the time and place. Woodenton, as you may not know, has long been the home of well-to-do Protestants. It is only since the war that Jews have been able to buy property here, and for Jews and Gentiles to live beside each other in amity. For this adjustment to be made, both Jews and Gentiles alike have had to give up some of their more extreme practices in order not to threaten or offend the other. Certainly such amity is to be desired. Perhaps if such conditions had existed in pre-war Europe, the persecution of the Jewish people, of which you and those 18 children have been victims, could not have been carried out with such success. In fact, might not have been carried out at all. Therefore, Mr. Tsurev, will you accept the following conditions? If you can, we will see fit not to carry out legal action against the yeshiva for failure to comply with Township zoning ordinances number 18 and number 23. The conditions are simply: 1. The religious, educational, and social activities of the yeshiva of Woodenton will be confined to the yeshiva grounds. 2. Yeshiva personnel are welcomed in the streets and stores of Woodenton, provided they are attired in clothing usually associated with American life in the 20th century. If these conditions are met, we see no reason why the yeshiva of Woodenton cannot live peacefully and satisfactorily with the Jews of Woodenton, as the Jews of Woodenton have come to live with the Gentiles of Woodenton. I would appreciate an immediate reply. Sincerely, Eli Peck, attorney. 2 days later, Eli received his immediate reply. Mr. Peck, the suit the gentleman wears is all he's got. Sincerely, Leo Tsurev, headmaster. Once again, as Eli swung around the dark trees and onto the lawn, the children fled. He reached out with his briefcase as if to stop them, but they were gone so fast all he saw moving was a flock of skullcaps. Come, come, a voice called from the porch. Tsurev appeared from behind a pillar. Did he live behind those pillars? Was he just watching the children at play? Either way, when Eli appeared, Tsurev was ready with no forewarning. Hello, Eli said. Shulam. I didn't mean to frighten them. They're scared, so they run. I didn't do anything. Tsurev shrugged. The little movement seemed to Eli strong as an accusation. What he didn't get at home, he got here. Inside the house, they took their seats. Though it was lighter than a few evenings before, a bulb or two would have helped. Eli had to hold his briefcase toward the window for the last gleamings. He removed Zuref's letter from a manila folder. Zuref removed Eli's letter from his pants pocket. Eli removed the carbon of his own letter from another manila folder. Zuref removed Eli's first letter from his back pocket. Eli removed the carbon from his briefcase. Zuref raised his palms. It's all I've got. Those upraised palms, the mocking tone, another accusation. It was a crime to keep carbons? Everybody had an edge on him. Eli could do no right. I offered a compromise, Mr. Zuref. You refused. Refused, Mr. Peck? What is. The man could get a new suit. That's all he's got. So you told me. So I told you, so you know. It's not an insurmountable obstacle, Mr. Zuref. We have stores. For that, too? On Route 12, a Robert Hall. To take away the one thing a man's got? Not take away, replace. But I tell you, he has nothing. Nothing. You have that word in English. Nicht, gar nicht. Yes, Mr. Zuref, we have the word. A mother and a father, Zuref said. No. A wife? No. A baby? A little 10-month-old baby? No. A village full of friends? A synagogue where you knew the feel of every seat under your pants, where with your eyes closed you could smell the cloth of the Torah? Zuref pushed out of his chair, stirring a breeze that swept Eli's letter to the floor. At the window he leaned out and looked beyond Woodington. When he turned, he was shaking a finger at Eli. And the medical experiment they performed on him yet, that leaves nothing, Mr. Peck. Absolutely nothing. I misunderstood. No news reached Woodington. About the suit, Mr. Zuref. I thought he couldn't afford another. He can't. They were right where they'd begun. Mr. Zuref, Eli demanded. Here? He smacked his hand to his billfold. Exactly, Zuref said, smacking his own breast. Then we'll buy him one. Eli crossed to the window and, taking Zuref by the shoulders, pronounced each word slowly. We will pay for it. All right? Pay? What, diamonds? Eli raised a hand to his inside pocket, then let it drop. Oh, stupid. Zuref, father to 18, had smacked not what lay under his coat, but deeper, under the ribs. Oh, Eli said. He moved away along the wall. The suit is all he's got, then. You got my letter, Zuref said. Eli stayed back in the shadow, and Zuref turned to his chair. He swished Eli's letter from the floor and held it up. You say too much. All this reasoning, all these conditions. What can I do? You have the word suffer in English. We have the word suffer. We have the word law, too. Stop with the law. You have the word suffer. Then try it. It's a little thing. They won't, Eli said. But you, Mr. Peck, how about you? I am them. They are me, Mr. Zuref. Ah, you are us. We are you. Eli shook and shook his head. In the dark, he suddenly felt that Zuref might put him under a spell. Mr. Zuref, a little light. Zuref lit what tallow was left in the holders. Eli was afraid to ask if they couldn't afford electricity. Maybe candles were all they had left. Mr. Peck, who made the law? May I ask you that? The people. No. Yes. Before the people. No one. Before the people there was no law. Eli didn't care for the conversation, but with only candlelight he was being lulled into it. Wrong, Zuref said. We make the law, Mr. Zuref. It is our community. These are my neighbors. I am their attorney. They pay me. Without law, there is chaos. What you call law, I call shame. The heart, Mr. Peck, the heart is law. God, he announced. Look, Mr. Zuref, I didn't come here to talk metaphysics. People use the law. It's a flexible thing. They protect what they value, their property, their well-being, their happiness. Happiness? They hide their shame. And you, Mr. Peck, you are shameless? We do it, Eli said wearily, for our children. This is the 20th century. For the Goyim, maybe. For me, the 58th. He pointed at Eli. That is too old for shame. Eli felt squashed. Everybody in the world had evil reasons for his actions. Everybody. With reasons so cheap, who buys bulbs? Enough wisdom, Mr. Zuref. Please, I'm exhausted. Who isn't? Zuref said. He picked Eli's papers from his desk and reached up with them. What do you intend for us to do? What you must, Eli said. I made the offer. So, he must give up his suit? Zuref, leave me be with that suit. I'm not the only lawyer in the world. I'll drop the case and you'll get somebody who won't talk compromise. Then you'll have no home, no children, nothing. Only a lousy black suit. Sacrifice what you want. I know what I would do. To that, Zuref made no answer, but only handed Eli his letters. It's not me, Mr. Zuref, it's them. They are you. No, Eli intoned. I am me. They are them. You are you. You talk about leaves and branches. I'm dealing with under the dirt. Mr. Zuref, you're driving me crazy with Talmudic wisdom. This is that is the other thing. Give me a straight answer. Only for straight question. Oh, God. Eli returned to his chair and plunged his belongings into his case. Then that's all, he said angrily. Zuref gave him the shrug. Remember, Zuref, you called this down on yourself. I did. Eli refused to be his victim again. Double talk proved nothing. Goodbye, he said. But as he opened the door leading to the hall, he heard Zuref. And your wife, how is she? Fine, just fine, Eli kept going. And the baby's due when? Any day? Eli turned. That's right. Well, Zuref said, rising, good luck. You know? Zuref pointed out the window, then with his hands he drew upon himself a beard, a hat, a long, long coat. When his fingers formed the hem, they touched the floor. He shops 2-3 times a week. He gets to know them. He talks to them. He sees them. And he can tell which is my wife. They shop at the same stores. He says she's beautiful. She has a kind face. A woman capable of love. Though who can be sure? He talks about us to you? Demanded Eli. You talk about us to her? Goodbye, Mr. Zuref. Zuref said, Sholem, and good luck. I know what it is to have children. Sholem, Zuref whispered, and with a whisper the candles went out. But the instant before, the flames leaped into Zuref's eyes, and Eli saw it was not luck Zuref wished him at all. Outside the door, Eli waited. Down the lawn, the children were holding hands and whirling around in a circle. At first, he did not move, but he could not hide in the shadows all night. Slowly, he began to slip along the front of the house. Under his hands, he felt where bricks were out. He moved in the shadows until he reached the side, and then, clutching his briefcase to his chest, he broke across the darkest spots of the lawn. He aimed for a distant glade of woods, and when he reached it, he did not stop, but ran through until he was so dizzied that the trees seemed to be running beside him, fleeing not towards Woodington, but away. His lungs were nearly ripping their seams as he burst into the yellow glow of the Gulf station at the edge of town. "Eli, I had pains today. Where were you?" "I went to Zurich." "Why didn't you call? I was worried." He tossed his hat past the sofa and onto the floor. "Where are my winter suits?" "In the hall closet." "Eli, it's May. I need a strong suit." He left the room, Miriam behind him. "Eli, talk to me. Sit down, have dinner. Eli, what are you doing? You're going to get mothballs all over the carpet." He peered out from the hall closet. Then he peered in again. There was a zipping noise, and suddenly he swept a greenish tweed suit before his wife's eyes. "Eli, I love you in that suit, but not now. Have something to eat. I made dinner tonight. I'll warm it. You've got a box big enough for this suit?" I got a Bonwitz box the other day. "Eli, why?" "Miriam, you see me doing something. Let me do it." "You haven't eaten." "I'm doing something." He started up the stairs to the bedroom. "Eli, would you please tell me what it is you want and why?" He turned and looked down at her. "Suppose this time you give me the reasons before I tell you what I'm doing. It'll probably work out the same anyway." "Eli, I want to help." "It doesn't concern you." "But I want to help you," Miriam said. "Just be quiet then." "But you're upset," she said, and she followed him up the stairs, heavily, breathing for two. "Eli, what now?" "A shirt." He yanked open all the drawers of their new teak dresser. He extracted a shirt. "Eli, Batiste? With a tweed suit?" she inquired. He was at the closet now on his knees. "Where are my cordovans?" "Eli, why are you doing this so compulsively? You look like you have to do something." "Oh, Miriam, you're super subtle." "Eli, stop this and talk to me. Stop it, or I'll call Dr. Ekman." Eli was kicking off the shoes he was wearing. "Where's the Bonwit box?" "Eli? Do you want me to have the baby right here?" Eli walked over and sat down on the bed. He was draped not only with his own clothing, but also with a greenish tweed suit, the Batiste shirt, and under each arm a shoe. He raised his arms and let the shoes drop onto the bed. Then he undid his necktie with one hand and his teeth and added that to the booty. "Underwear," he said. "He'll need underwear." "Who?" He was slipping out of his socks. Miriam kneeled down and helped him ease his left foot out of the sock. She sat with it on the floor. "Eli, just lie back, please." "Plaza 9, 3103. "What?" "Ekman's number," he said. "It'll save you the trouble." "Eli, you got that goddamn tender you need help look in your eyes, Miriam. Don't tell me you don't." "I don't." "I'm not flipping," Eli said. "I know, Eli. Last time I sat in the bottom of the closet and chewed on my bedroom slippers. That's what I did." "I know, and I'm not doing that. This is not a nervous breakdown, Miriam. Let's get that straight." "Okay," Miriam said. She kissed the foot she held. Then softly she asked, "What are you doing?" "Getting clothes for the guy in the hat. Don't tell me why, Miriam. Just let me do it." "That's all?" she asked. "That's all." "You're not leaving?" "No." "Sometimes I think it gets too much for you and you'll just leave." "What gets too much?" "I don't know, Eli. Something gets too much. Whenever everything's peaceful for a long time and things are nice and pleasant and we're expecting to be even happier. Like now. It's as if you don't think we deserve to be happy. Damn it, Miriam, I'm giving this guy a new suit. Is that all right? From now on, he comes into Woodington like everybody else. Is that all right with you?" "And Zurich moves?" "I don't even know if he'll take the suit, Miriam. What do you have to bring up moving?" "Eli, I didn't bring up moving. Everybody did. That's what everybody wants. Why make everybody unhappy? It's even a law, Eli." "Don't tell me what's the law." "All right, sweetie, I'll get the box. I'll get the box. Where is it? In the basement. When he came up from the basement, he found all the clothes neatly folded and squared away on the sofa. Shirt, tie, shoes, socks, underwear, belt, and an old gray flannel suit. His wife sat on the end of the sofa, looking like an anchored balloon. "Where's the green suit?" he said. "Eli, it's your loveliest suit. It's my favorite suit. Whenever I think of you, Eli, it's in that suit." "Get it out." "Eli, it's a Brooks Brothers suit. You say yourself how much you love it. Get it out." "But the gray flannel's more practical, for shopping." "Get it out." "You go overboard, Eli. That's your trouble. You won't do anything in moderation. That's how people destroy themselves." "I do everything in moderation. That's my trouble." "The suit's in the closet again?" She nodded and began to fill up with tears. "Why does it have to be your suit? Who are you even to decide to give a suit? What about the others?" She was crying openly and holding her belly. "Eli, I'm going to have a baby. Do we need all this?" And she swept the clothes off the sofa to the floor. At the closet, Eli removed the green suit. "It's a J press," he said, looking at the lining. "I hope to hell he's happy with it," Miriam said, sobbing. A half hour later, the box was packed. The cord he'd found in the kitchen cabinet couldn't keep the outfit from popping through. The trouble was there was too much. The gray suit and the green suit, an Oxford shirt as well as the batiste. But let him have 2 suits. Let him have 3, 4, if only this damn silliness would stop. And a hat, of course. God, he'd almost forgotten the hat. He took the stairs 2 at a time, and in Miriam's closet yanked the hat box from the top shelf. Scattering hat and tissue paper to the floor, he returned downstairs where he packed away the hat he'd worn that day. Then he looked at his wife, who lay outstretched on the floor before the fireplace. For the 3rd time in as many minutes, she was saying, "Eli, this is the real thing." "Where?" "Right under the baby's head, like somebody squeezing oranges." Now that he'd stopped to listen, he was stupefied. He said, "But you have 2 more weeks." Somehow he'd really been expecting it was to go on not just another 2 weeks, but another 9 months. This led him to suspect suddenly that his wife was feigning pain so as to get his mind off delivering the suit. And just as suddenly he resented himself for having such a thought. God, what had he become? He'd been an unending bastard towards her since this Zuref business had come up, just when her pregnancy must have been most burdensome. He'd allowed her no access to him, but still he was sure for good reasons. She might tempt him out of his confusion with her easy answers. He could be tempted, all right. It was why he fought so hard. But now a sweep of love came over him at the thought of her contracting womb and his child. And yet he would not indicate it to her. Under such splendid marital conditions, who knows but she might extract some promise from him about his concern with the school on the hill. Having packed his 2nd bag of the evening, Eli sped his wife to Woodington Memorial. There she proceeded not to have her baby, but to lie hour after hour through the night, having at first oranges, then bowling balls, then basketballs squeezed back of her pelvis. Eli sat in the waiting room, under the shattering African glare of a dozen rows of fluorescent bulbs, composing a letter to Zuref. Dear Mr. Zuref, the clothes in this box are for the gentleman in the hat. In a life of sacrifice, what is one more? But in a life of no sacrifices, even one is impossible. Do you see what I'm saying, Mr. Zuref? I am not a Nazi who would drive 18 children, who are probably frightened at the sight of a firefly, into homelessness. But if you want a home here, you must accept what we have to offer. The world is the world, Mr. Zuref. As you would say, what is, is. All we say to this man is change your clothes. Enclosed are 2 suits and 2 shirts and everything else he'll need, including a new hat. When he needs new clothes, let me know. We await his appearance in Woodenton as we await friendly relations with the yeshiva of Woodenton. He signed his name and slid the note under a bursting flap and into the box. Then he went to the phone at the end of the room and dialed Ted Heller's number. "Hello? Shirley? It's Eli." "Eli, we've been calling all night. The lights are on in your place, but nobody answers. We thought it was burglars." "Miriam's having the baby." "At home?" Shirley said. "Oh, Eli, what a fun idea." "Shirley, let me speak to Ted." After the ear-shaking clatter of the phone whacking the floor, Eli heard footsteps, breathing, throat clearing, then Ted. "A boy or a girl?" "Nothing yet." "You've given Shirley the bug, Eli. Now she's going to have our next one at home." "Good. That's a terrific way to bring the family together, Eli." "Look, Ted, I've settled with Zuref." "When are they going?" "They're not exactly going, Teddy. I settled it. You won't even know they're there." "A guy dressed like 1000 BC and I won't know it? What are you thinking about, pal?" "He's changing his clothes." "Yeah, to what? Another funeral suit?" "Zuref promised me, Ted, next time he comes to town, he comes dressed like you and me." "What?" "Somebody's kidding somebody, Eli." Eli's voice shot up. "If he says he'll do it, he'll do it." "And Eli," Ted asked, "he said it?" "He said it." It cost him a sudden headache, this invention. "And suppose he doesn't change, Eli. Just suppose. I mean, that might happen, Eli. This might just be some kind of stall or something." "No," Eli assured him. The other end was quiet a moment.